Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to learn more on something that's been in all the headlines around the state of Oklahoma, and that's the commutations.
Yes, the very lengthy process to bring about a commutation and the tremendous success that that effort realized in commuting the sentences of many, many Oklahomans who are now out and doing better, we hope. Corbin Brewster is our guest today. He's the Tulsa County Public Defender, and we want to spend a little bit of time talking with Corbin about his background and let you folks get to know him, because I think you'll like him and you'll appreciate what a great asset he is to the public defender system.
And we'll learn all of that and more today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
ECU always hosts this event every year called Tiger Tank, where you bring your ideas for a product or business. Tiger Tank itself actually was a very big competition. What we came up with is a product that allows you to play old video games on a phone. I am Cody Greenwood. I am studying mass media communications at ECU, and I am Chickasaw. When I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. One of the biggest things a lot of people don't understand, it's a lot of social anxiety and awkwardness. A lot of people may have seen it as a setback, but in reality, I find it a way to be motivated to do something with my life. Being Chickasaw is resilience. They never give up. My grandfather, he's always told me, you get back what you put in, and I just want to get back to the Chickasaw Nation that is given to me.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofenation.com.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma, and half of those are still unaware of the benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
We are really pleased today to bring to you Corbin Brewster, the public defender of Tulsa County. Corbin is a native Tulsan. He did his undergraduate work at the University of Tulsa, did his law work at Washington University School of Law in St. Louis. He graduated in 2008. He came back to Tulsa after that and was in private practice here in Tulsa doing a good bit of criminal defense work, did some work dealing with capital punishment cases on the appellate level. And then in 2017 made a pretty big switch in career and became the Tulsa County Public Defender, and since 2017 has been serving in that capacity. Corbin is going to talk to us about his career and how he got to where he is today, but he's also going to focus on the recent commutations that have taken place in Oklahoma and what we ought to know about them, how they came about, and what was the motivation for just now that happening, whereas it hadn't happened ever before, either in Oklahoma or elsewhere. Corbin, welcome. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great having the show. Where'd you grow up, Corbin?
Here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My parents moved down here in 1979. My dad went to TU Law School and then stayed here. So I'm the first Brewster born in Oklahoma.
Where are the Brewsters from?
Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And apparently you like it. You're second generation still here.
I love, and I will say, in the last 10 years, Tulsa has grown and more exciting things have happened in the city and in the state, I think, than in the last 30 years. And it's a great place to live.
Kent mentioned in your background that you were in private practice and then joined the public defender's office. Why that career switch? That's obviously had to take a lot of consideration.
the chief public defender before me, Rob Nye, was a mentor of mine, and he was a partner at the firm I was at. He left the firm in a real service-oriented decision to try to help the public defender's office move forward. And he tragically passed away of cancer. And when the spot was being replaced, I thought it would be just an amazing thing to carry on his legacy and try to keep his momentum that he brought to the office and move it forward. And the call to the service of it, and it was compelling.
What's the process? How is that position selected?
So in Oklahoma, there's 3 indigent defense agencies. You've got the Oklahoma County Public Defender's Office, the Tulsa County Public Defender's Office, and for all the other counties in Oklahoma, it's the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System.
OIDS.
OIDS. And I worked at OIDS for a couple years in the Capital Trial Division, but the Oklahoma and Tulsa County Public Defenders are selected by the district judges in that county.
Okay.
I have to tell you that Bob Ravitz, the public defender in Oklahoma County, has been a good friend of mine for many, many years. And I talked to him after you were selected in Tulsa, and his response was the best thing that ever happened to Tulsa was getting Corbin Brewster as a public defender. I mean, he really gives you high marks and a lot of accolades for taking this big step. This is a huge step for you, I know personally.
It's been the greatest opportunity in my career, and it is humbling to work with amazing people in the office, and Bob's been a great mentor and resource for me to bounce ideas off of, and he's got an incredible historical base of knowledge about.
Yeah, I think he became Oklahoma County Public Defender in 1907, statehood.
And he's still doing a great job.
Yes, he is.
You know, a lot of people might look at the public defender's office and they'll relate to some TV show they have, because public defenders are all over primetime television in one capacity or another. If you ever have watched those shows, what type of criteria can you dispel? I mean, how accurate are some of those presentations?
I think there's a certain kind of person drawn to doing the work of a public defender because it's often thankless work. On one side, people think that you're trying to get criminals off from being held responsible, and that's a bad thing. From the side of your clients, they often think you're not doing enough, or that the system is rigged and that you're part of it because you work for the same government that the prosecutors work for. And so you're caught kind of in the middle where there's sometimes not enough public appreciation for what you do. So that's not why you go into it for that. You go into it for the intrinsic reward of helping people that don't have anyone else standing up for them. And regardless of what they're accused of, the system's got to work for the least of the people in our community to work for everyone. So even people that have been accused of horrible things deserve competent professional representation, and the constitutional rights that are at issue in those cases are important to hold the line so that they're upheld for everyone.
Well, in your private practice before, or in your practice before you became public defender, talk about your experiences in capital cases. How does that take a drain on you?
Well, when I was at the Capital Trial Division at OIDS, and
death penalty is what we're talking about.
That's right. Yeah, these were at the time the Capital Division OIDS was handling all first-degree murder cases in the OIDS counties, all but Tulsa and Oklahoma County, and it takes a drain on you because the loss of human life is always profound, and your clients are often extremely vulnerable. They're the most vulnerable criminal defendants in the system because the ultimate punishment is on the table. And you have tremendously grieving families that are on the other side of the bar that are trying to understand and grasp what has happened. Your client's trying to understand and grasp what's happened. When you're in a small community, or any community really, the community's trying to grasp what happened for things to have the gravity to be elevated to a death penalty case. And you're dealing with gruesome photos, you're dealing with gruesome facts in a case that can take a toll.
I would guess that domestic violence is part of the issue that you're facing on either side.
Yes, we at the Tulsa County Public Defender's Office, we are appointed to a significant number of domestic cases every year. I would say in the thousands.
Oh my goodness.
We handle over 4,000 felony cases a year at our office, which is about 70% of the open felony cases in Tulsa County, and about half of all misdemeanors.
Do you have opinions on domestic violence and what we can do on the front end to lessen the load?
It's a complex issue. I mean, I think some of the most complex issues that face our community are found, they find intersections in criminal justice. You have mental illness, addiction problems, you have poverty, trauma, and domestic issues. Domestic violence issues are complex because you have someone who is a victim, who their personal safety is threatened by often someone is the closest person to them, a spouse or a parent or even a sibling. And those relationships are often more complex than the black and white that a criminal justice solution can bring when someone's charged with a crime. So educating, providing resources to people, providing opportunities for them to rehabilitate and understand why they've lost their temper, whatever the problem was that brought them to that point of violence, and supporting victims, I think, is all important to work on that.
Just for a minute before we have to go to break, talk about your office. How many lawyers do you have besides yourself in your office?
We have 43 attorneys. We have about 23 that do just adult criminal felony work. We have currently 7 attorneys in our juvenile division. We get appointed to civil mental health cases. We handle the appeals that come out of the trials in our office. We handle misdemeanors. So it's a significantly big office.
That's a big law firm.
It is.
In Oklahoma.
Yes, it is. It's a big law firm.
Let me get us to a break. We're visiting with Corbin Brewster. He's the Chief Public Defender for Tulsa County. We're going to talk about the commutation process that took place statewide in Oklahoma. That'll be coming up after the break. We'll be right back.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative, and this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick, Cornett, and Kent Meyers, and our guest is Corbin Brewster. He's the Chief Public Defender for Tulsa County. And I know you were involved in the statewide effort to lessen sentences and release people before their time had previously scheduled had been up, and you know, the media could almost not get enough of it. And we've known in Oklahoma that criminal justice reform has been badly needed for a long, long time, and it seemed like it was been very difficult to kind of unlock, the issue, because there were so many agencies and people involved. So you came into this, and you're one of the people that's kind of tasked to solve this. So yeah.
I don't know if I was tasked to solve it, but I see it. We had an opportunity to partner with some really great organizations, the Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform and the University of Tulsa Law School, and provide an environment within our office of mentoring law students to do the grunt work of reviewing eligible cases. And we were turned on to this process after the State Question 780 was passed. And we realized that there were over 1,000 people still in Department of Corrections custody on felony simple drug possession that was now an excessive sentence. And there was an opportunity to find people eligible for commutation and use that process as a safety valve to get people out of prison.
Let's take a step back and tell our viewers, what is commutation and what does it mean? What effect does it have on the individual?
So when someone's sentenced on a felony crime to go to Department of Corrections custody and go to prison, that's a judicial process. That happens in courtrooms. They may have a public defender representing them. The commutation process is an executive process. The Pardon and Parole Board oversees that process, and it's an executive review of if a sentence is excessive. The Pardon and Parole Board can review that. The application process is a 3-stage process. The first is a jacket review, where the Pardon and Parole Board team will review whether someone has had misconducts while in prison, or has a violent history, or there's a victim that's objecting. There's sort of a screening process as stage 1. Stage 2 is a hearing process where the person appears, usually by closed circuit TV, and is interviewed by the Pardon and Parole Board and has an opportunity to explain why they're asking for commutation and why they should be recommended for it. And the third stage is a review by the governor himself in the governor's office. If the Pardon and Parole Board votes by majority, there's 5 members, to recommend commutation for an individual, that then goes to the governor's desk and he can approve it or not approve it. It's purely within the governor's discretion at that point.
Do inmates that are seeking commutation typically have lawyers representing them through the process, or can they just do it by themselves?
They can do it by themselves. There's an application process that is made available to them if they want to do it on their own. There are some attorneys that specialize in doing it. One thing that's worked with our project that has been a really neat thing is that you don't have to be an attorney to be a delegate at a commutation hearing. And we've seen hearings where prison guards who are in retirement come back to advocate for someone that they thought was deserving in the process. So the law students have been able to be delegates at those hearings because you don't need to be an attorney to do that.
Well, now if the process turns out successfully for the inmate, that the commutation is granted, what does that in fact mean?
It depends on whether the governor can commute someone to time served, which is what happened with the 1269 release that happened a few weeks ago.
Now, by time served, do you mean how much time has the particular inmate already spent behind bars?
Right. It would be, the commutation at that point would be, time served means basically we're recommending immediate release.
Okay.
You could, if someone, let's say, is serving a 10-year sentence in prison, you could commute that sentence to 9 years or 5 years or whatever. There's a flexibility given to the governor's office to make that decision.
So getting a commutation of your sentence doesn't necessarily always mean that they immediately get out.
True.
It just means their sentence has been reduced, and it might be reduced enough that would warrant immediate release.
That's true.
Okay.
By the numbers, Oklahoma had incarcerated an extraordinarily large number of its citizens. And one of the thoughts is that Oklahoma's social issues are a direct result of that. And I know you've been involved with seeing some of these people that get to return to society. They also get to return to their family.
Yes. We had some just amazing stories. The first year, so State Question 780 went into effect in 2017. And in the summer of 2018 was the first year that we started participating in the commutation project. And 30 individuals were released on those efforts, and that was at the end of Governor Fallon's tenure. She signed those commutations. Of those 30, we've had some amazing success stories. There was a woman that was sentenced to 20 years on a simple drug possession crime out of Garfield County, who decided to move to Tulsa because we'd put together a reentry plan for her through residents who've been a great ally in this process. She came to Tulsa, voluntarily moved into a sober living facility, has become a mentor for other women that are trying to get on the right path, got a certificate as a welder, and was already welding things around the sober living house to help there. And it's just has such a wonderful attitude, is working to reunite with her children who were removed from her in the criminal process, and has just been an inspiration and has set a great example for other people hoping to get out.
Are there enough programs involved with reentry? Are we properly serving the people as they're released?
That's a great question. We've worked really hard, and there's some great resources in Tulsa for that. And Bob Ravitz and other entities in Oklahoma City have worked hard. And I think it's easier to do that in the bigger cities because you have more people to serve. It's more difficult to do that in the rural counties because there aren't as many resources there. And what we found, a lot of these excessive drug possession sentences came out of drug courts in rural counties because they just didn't have the resources to serve people. That's one part of the process we've really paid attention to, or the people that we filed applications for. We've paid very careful attention to the reentry resources and plans that we've tried to help for people to be successful if they get out.
Let's talk just for a minute about recidivism, reoffending. If the inmate goes through, serves the entire sentence, and is released because the sentence has just been completed, there is a relatively high recidivism rate, is there not, in Oklahoma?
I've heard the number 25% batted around, but that data is often, used to support one policy side versus another. Yeah. But I think there is, what you have with a lot of people who are incarcerated are underlying problems that don't get resolved during the prison stint. The rehabilitation process that we would hope occurs, and the opportunities to get on the right path, we should have more resources available for people. But if you have an addiction problem, recovery is not a straight line. And if that is, you're still struggling with that when you're released, often they'll relapse, and the relapse, the consequences of that often intersect the criminal justice system.
Well, the point I wanted to ask you about is we shouldn't expect zero recidivism in the people whose sentences have been commuted.
Right. I think that's fair. I mean, there are going to be people that stumble, but I think we can reduce that number with a focus on the resources that we're providing people.
Good.
About 30 seconds left. Will there be more large commutations like the one we just experienced down the line?
I think that 1269 is postured, if there's additional reform on sentencing at the legislature, it would open the door to more commutations. And we're targeting some other populations of people within DOC now to try to keep this going and keep the momentum going. I think we found that the Pardon and Parole Board is a real safety valve for the over-incarceration we have in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect between the inputs and the costs at the state level that we have in the criminal justice system. Prosecutors still run on tough on crime, and they get rewarded by putting more people in for longer, but then the costs at the state level and the problems that we have with over-incarceration are disconnected from that. So
Corbin Brewster has been our guest. He's the chief public defender for Tulsa County. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Corbin. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
We have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids got to know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're wrapping up the show with Corbin Brewster.
Yes, Corbin was a great selection for a public defender in Tulsa County, and he's young, vigorous, enthusiastic, bright, and he's assembled a staff that the state can be proud of, and particularly Tulsa can be proud of. And I think that we're going to hear a lot of good things about the commutation program and other public defender activities under Corbin's leadership.
More information on his office at tulsapublicdefender.net. That's going to be it for this week. Thanks for joining us on The Verdict.